You followed every single diet you can think of, only to find yourself feeling out of control around food again and again. You've counted calories, you've cut carbs, and you've sawn off sugar, hoping that this time things will be different. And for a little while, maybe it is, but then life happens. You have an argument with someone, you have a stressful day at work, or you're just bored on a Thursday night. And before you know it, you're standing in front of your fridge and that out of control feeling is back with a vengeance. That feeling, that out of control feeling, it's not your fault and it's not a lack of willpower. It's the hidden emotional triggers that are secretly wired into your brain. You see, diet culture sells us this idea that if you can only follow the rules, then you'll master your cravings and finally have full control over your relationship with food. But for many people, they get stuck in this cycle of restriction, binging, guilt and shame. And that sets you up for this cycle of feeling like you failed over and over again. In this video, I'm going to show you the triggers that are really driving your desire to eat. More importantly, I'm going to give you some tips to help you disarm that so that those triggers don't feel so overwhelming. Now, you are probably someone who regularly finds yourself eating even when you're not physically hungry. You know you're not physically hungry, but that desire to eat a specific food is so overwhelming that you end up binging and overeating on the chocolate or the ice cream. So if it's not actually physical hunger, what is it? Emotional hunger or emotional eating is often used as a coping mechanism. It's a way to soothe or suppress or distract ourselves from negative emotions that you're feeling on that particular day. Now, it's quite important to distinguish between those two types of hunger. So you've got your physical hunger and your emotional hunger. With physical hunger, what you find is that the sensations will build gradually, and that you probably fancy a variety of different foods. So you might think, oh, I'll have some eggs or some toast or salad. Emotional hunger is very different because it hits really quickly and you have this sudden desire, this sudden craving, and it's often to eat a specific food. So it might be the sudden craving for a bar of chocolate or a packet of crisps. And it really does feel urgent. And I want to share 4 triggers that might be contributing to that emotional hunger. Trigger number 1 is stress or anxiety. This is a big one. When we're stressed, we release a hormone called cortisol, and that can rev up your appetite for high sugary or high fat foods. This is actually an ancient survival system. When you go into fight or flight, your system is basically telling you to stock up on calories. For example, if you were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, having extra calories to be able to run faster and further than everyone else would be of real benefit to you. But the problem is, in today's modern society, our threat might just be an overflowing list of to-dos or having to deal with multiple demands on a daily basis. So that's your classic kind of stress eating. Trigger number 2 is boredom, and this is a really classic one. You get that like restless or antsy feeling, maybe mid-afternoon or in the evening. Perhaps you're feeling bored at work, or in the evening you're not really engaged in anything meaningful. So food becomes a way to like fill a void so that there is some sensation, kind of to give you something to do. It's a quick and easy distraction when you're feeling understimulated. So sometimes people will snack out of boredom. Trigger number 3 could be sadness or loneliness. We as humans are wired to connect with people. So when we feel lonely or isolated, for example, our brain might look for food as a way to provide that level of comfort. And actually, comfort foods can stimulate some dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical, and that gives us a temporary positive feeling. When you eat because you feel lonely, you're actually trying to soothe a very deep-seated need for connection. Trigger number 4 is fatigue or just tiredness. This feels really physical when you're exhausted or you haven't slept very well or you just had a long day. Your body craves a quick source of energy, and again that can translate into very strong cravings for high carb, high sugar, quick fix type foods. And although this could feel like a biological drive to actually eat, but it can be tangled up in that emotional state of just pure exhaustion. So I'm going to give you a quick 3-step process that you can go through when you feel that urge to eat emotionally. Step number 1 is to have a mindful pause. The next time you have that sudden urgent craving and desire to eat, I'm going to recommend that you take just that moment to have a mindful pause and ask yourself, what am I truly feeling right now? This is a little bit like a pattern interrupter, just to try and pause before you reach for food. So when you ask yourself that question, aim to give that emotion a name. Is it the stress from the day that you've had? Are you feeling angry or frustrated or annoyed? Maybe you're just overwhelmed or bored or a little bit lonely or sad. The crucial point here is not to judge the emotion, but just to name it. Examine it like a neutral observer. After you've named that emotion, you can do a quick check-in to see whether you are actually hungry or whether it could be emotional eating. Because if you are actually hungry, you've got those classic signs of hunger, your stomach is rumbling, then I actually recommend you go and eat. So you might want to, at this point, check in and ask yourself, when was the last time you had a balanced meal or snack? So if it was quite a long time ago, genuinely, you probably are hungry. But if that craving or the desire to eat is just for a pint of ice cream or a bar of chocolate, then it's quite possible that it's emotional hunger rather than physical, biological hunger. So the next step in the process would be to do something to address that specific emotion. In the previous step, I asked you to identify the emotion. Once you have actually identified that emotion, you want to do something that actually addresses that specific emotion. For example, if you're feeling stressed or anxious, the chances are your body is in that fight or flight mode. One thing you can do is help to calm your nervous system. So great things that you can do here, you can do some deep breathing, some stretching, a short walk around the block, or a firm favorite of mine is actually to fill the sink with some really cold water and immerse your head face down, dunk your face basically in really, really cold water. That stimulates your vagus nerve, and it can be really good for calming the nervous system. If you're feeling bored, your brain is literally begging for stimulation. So give it some. Maybe you could put on some loud music and dance around your living room, or watch a short funny video about cats, or do a puzzle or Sudoku, or read a book, or call a friend, or again, walk around the block. So you want to swap that kind of low-grade distraction, eating food, for something that's a bit more engaging. If you are sad and lonely, then your brain probably just wants connection or comfort. So again, rather than using food to soothe, find something else. Some of my clients really find that journaling can be helpful. Other people like to record their feelings into a voice note and then listen back to it or delete it, or get in touch with a friend, pick up the phone, text someone, reach out for that connection, or go and do an activity where there are other people around. And the point isn't to perfectly solve that emotion in that short amount of time, but what you want to do over time is to prove to your brain that food isn't the only answer in that scenario. You want to get out of that habit of always reaching for food and give yourself some alternative coping mechanisms that are going to help you cope in that specific moment. And then the third thing, and this is perhaps most important, is to have real compassion for yourself. So there will be times when you still eat emotionally, and I think it's really important to remember that when we recover from something like this, it is a process, and some days things will go well and sometimes they won't go well. But if you've been for years eating emotionally, it's not something that's going to disappear overnight. And the problem is you've probably spent years responding to yourself when you emotionally eat in a negative way, feeling guilty, feeling shame, telling yourself off, maybe that real negative self-talk of like, why did I do this? Why am am I always here? And honestly, the worst thing you can do is respond by more restriction and saying, right, that's it, tomorrow I'm just going to eat a salad. That's really not going to help. Instead, I want you to practice some radical self-compassion. You want to forgive yourself immediately and look at the situation with an objective and curious eye rather than a harsh self-critical way. So ask yourself, what did I really need back then? What was that feeling trying to tell me, and how can I do things differently in the future? A slip up is not failure. It's actually a learning event or a learning opportunity, and it can shine a spotlight on certain emotions that maybe need a bit more support. Maybe that for you, escaping from that binge restrict cycle comes when you finally understand that your struggle with food isn't necessarily about food itself, and that it's about emotions as well. It's about learning to understand what your body is really asking for. And honestly, this really is a journey, and often we have to unlearn a lot of what diet culture has taught us in the past. And I would love it if you would share in the comments below any triggers that you feel has contributed to your emotional eating in the past. Is it boredom or stress or anxiety maybe? You'll be amazed at how many other people feel like they're in the same boat too. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please do give me a like and subscribe to my content to find out more about recovery from binge eating, food freedom, and overcoming emotional eating. And you can check out these videos next for more recovery tips. Bye for now.